Hi guys, how we doing? Sam here with you. We're kind of late morning here on November 1st. And being a Thursday, we're looking at traditional assets today. So as we typically do, we poll the members, let them choose. And first up by request is a look at CGC, the Canopy Growth Corporation. The weed stocks have been very volatile, very active, and we have a sort of an interesting count here. So I can appreciate why they wanted to see some analysis here. This is kind of interesting and a bit tricky. So it's one of those examples where, you know, you're going to look at this and either the Elliott's going to make sense to you, or you're going to think, well, that's just a stupid way to go about it. All right, so I'll let you make your own conclusions. But if we apply the Elliott rule set here, it would appear that we still have another leg to go off of this pivot to give us a 5 here. So let me just quickly go through the count as I see it right now. And all I'm doing here, I've just wicked off the absolute low here, my one high. Just getting that initial range in the market. So we have a pretty good contender here for a 1-2. If I go off of this low to my 1, we know we're looking for that third somewhere between. Here's the high probability zone, just right here. But it looks like we've got enough legs. We get all the way to the 272 to the tick, right? So you see, all we're doing is just, so here's the 618, 100, 1272, 1618. Now this is unique here. We have the 175, is that's so common for a wave 3, and then we just take that and then we carry it up. Then we go 200, 272, 2618, just like we did here. The only difference being the 175 is that's a kind of a mile marker for our third. Now, it looks like you can get a good 5 out of this third here. So I'm more inclined to go with this as our 3. This is the impulse. So I have a, yeah, so you can see here of this wave here, of this wave structure. So wave 1 to wave 3 here, we can use our Elliott oscillator here. It would imply that this is our third. So I'm comfortable with that count. And then it would appear that now here, both of these corrections have been somewhat unusual. So we get a pretty solid. Well, let's see if I do it this way. If we look, we'd be looking for the 4. So if I grab my 2 low, get it right on there to my 3 high, get it right on there. Okay. So you see what happens. So we come down 618 to the tick. So it would appear that we get an A, then we've got a 3 trend into a B here, right? So this is a B almost always pushing to try and challenge that high, and it fails, and then we come down and we drop right into the Vegas wave, and it looks like we get an ABC to give me a truncated C wave here relative to the A into a 4, because I can get a very clear, see, do I have that? That's going to be too big. Give me a second. Let's get that down to, let's go all the way to minuscule. Okay, so let me get rid of that. You can see the clear if I open this up. If I come off of that, I can get a nice clean 5 coming off of this proposed wave 4 low. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up we go for the 5. So, all right, now remember, I'm on a daily, so we're not going to get all of the subdivision here, but it would appear, and maybe that's too small. Let's get that up one so you can see it a little better. All right, now let me pull back out here. So it looks like a pretty solid 5 into that 1 wave here. So 3, A, B, C, truncated C. Look how the Vegas wave has just been the support all the way up. Just beautiful. Right? It's particularly good. If you're looking at equities, particularly good on the daily. If you're trading Forex, which is where it was taught to me, it's very effective on the 60-minute. So 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. I get a nice 5 and get my so I get an impulse here. We don't even challenge the 1 wave. So I get a nice clean 5 into a 1. I get an A, B, C into a 2. So far, with the exception of this unusual correction here in the 4, it looks like I go 1, 2. Now here's where it gets tricky. So from here, so just glancing at it, you would think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yet we don't get the subdivision to allow that to work. So it looks to me like we have an expanded flat here. But now this. Right, I know my Elliott purist, right? This is a bit deep for that C, but if you look here, let's open this up. All right, so if we try and dig into this, it's just, I can't get 5 out of that. So what I can get is a very clean, an additional ABC, and I get a 3 wave into the B, and then up for the C of the B. Let me get that up here. Give me a sec. get this so it fits and makes sense. So let's go, we'll go green here. We'll go up a degree here. I like to do this. It's just good habit so you don't lose track. Okay, so we get A. Now, A, as we just looked at this, so if we're trying to identify, so if we think we've got 1, 2, 3, and here comes the A, well, of course, we're looking just as we did at the last 2 to 3. We're looking for something technical, and we come just a couple of shy, if I'm right on that. Am I right on it? There we go. Okay, so we're just a couple shy on the 50. Very common for the A wave to be the first pivot down to the 50. But then we do this 3 wave here, so it makes me think we've got an expanded flat here. Now, yeah, that's a deep drop for the C of an expanded flat, but we do get a new low here. And then it gets a little tricky here. So the qualifier for this, you wouldn't want to allow for a B wave to go beyond. Let me see, I'm going to have to change this here. The 1272, so I'm going to go from looking this way, so I'm going to go to a different template here. I'm going to do the -100. So you can see here, this is the last level. You wouldn't want to get a B wave much beyond that for an expanded B. That's about the extreme that you could allow for, and we don't even make the 272. So I think this plays better as an AB. Yep, granted, we're going back. Now, look here as to where we've gone. So let me reset this. So this is the extreme we're working with to allow for that C. So now if I come back here, I got to do it this way. Let's get that reset to our measured move. Okay, so now this, so you look here and you think, oh, okay, well, if that's my 2 up to my 3, well, wait a minute, that's we're going 7, 8, 6 for the 4. Well, remember, an algo doesn't give a shit about the Elliott count. So an algo likely to use the dominant pivot. So if I go to the last low before we go up to this, well, now look what we get. Right to the 618. Now remember, that's exactly what we did on the last one. So we've got a contender here. Right, so you're trying to remember, we're always making the best educated guess we can in terms of what the algos did. Now, if I go beyond that, right, now we're coming to the 65. So we're trying to say, all right, what did they use? What did they use? We're always trying to figure out what can we don't. There are some times where we can say with certainty, but in a situation like this, I defer to the dominance. Right, here's the lowest low before that starts up, and here's my high. Again, algorithms not concerned with anything other than the dominant swings. So from dominant low to dominant high, I've come right to golden zone. Makes me think we've got a reasonable possibility here that if this is going to move off of this, we're just setting up the 1 of what would be, right, 3, 4, and 5 to get us up to complete this, to give us the 5 here of this in blue. So 1, 2, 3, 4, deep 4, going up for the 5 of the 5 to complete the 5 relative to this in white. Now, so is there a trade there? Sure, yeah, there's definitely a trade there. So as a question of how aggressive you want to be. So if I really zoom in here, and I just say, oh, well, I've got something started here. So from this swing high to swing low, well, we've just done the 38. We know we want to be looking here between the 50 and the 618. That's our prime zone for a 2. So if let's pull back out again. All right, so if we're going to get, sorry here, just trying to make it so you can see it. If I've got a little push off of that, the first retrace here, again, we'd be coming right back into the Vegas wave. I like that because the risk is so low. So I can be a buyer in here. I split the difference. If we're going to go to challenge that high, so even if we go up to challenge the prior high at the wave 3 high, I can be very tight on that stop. So there's well, I guess we wouldn't want 6, 6, 6 to 1. There's 6, well, I'll call it 6 to 1. All right, so that's on the assumption that we don't get a new high. Now, if we go to algo target, now we've got 9.59 to 1. Now, that again, we're making the assumption that this is the 1-2 going in, right? And that may be premature for that because that's not much of a range. So if you want to give that a little more time, now we can go down. Let's see if we get enough clarity here on a 1 hour. So maybe it's hard to call that complete, but it's possible we've completed here. It's going to start to really break up in terms of what we can pull out of that, in terms of what we can see if we go much below the hourly. So it's a contender, right? That's not much of a start, although it's something. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to let that shape a little bit more to see if we're really going to get a decent one. So something that would bring us up a little higher, maybe. So here in the 1 hour, we come back to visit, or think of it this way. There'll be an algo on the other side. So if we go from swing high to swing low, here's our 50. So even just looking for something in this range here to identify we've got a one wave. And then if you start projecting and put that in scale, because we look here and say, okay, well, algo target, well, how are we going to get there? Well, if this is the 1, 2, boy, we're gonna need one hell of a big 3 and maybe an extension in the 5 to get up that high. So pulling it back here, you think, okay, well, let's see if we can put together a roadmap. Well, if I went here for the 1 and went down for 50 for the 2 and then up about, I can kind of eyeball it, something like this. Right? That would give us a contender here. So that would at least get us to our algo target off of this, right? Do you see what that's tied to? So that's tied to this golden zone. Here's that target. That would complete it. My 5 up here. So we could do it this way. Right now, nothing says it has to stop there. That's just a reasonable target. So if you try and put some scale to this and think, well, how are we going to get there? Well, if it, right, as I was just showing you, if you're trying to do this as the 1, 2, well, we're going to need a very big 3, right, relative to the 1. So it may not be a bad idea to let this come up a little bit. Let's test the resistance on the way back. Look for that first retrace. That would be a more conservative way to approach it. So same idea here. Can I move that whole thing? I guess I can't. So if we come back down here and grab this after a little bit more traction off of this low to establish that range, well, we know this, we can put a stop directly under that 65. As we know, that's where an algo will stop out. So it may be a little premature to be a buyer here. So this is the conundrum. If you buy it now and we get up to this resistance here, maybe we get to the 50. Well, yeah, so then you got to make that decision. Am I trading for this distance here? Do I want to buy it here? Am I kind of scalping, trying to get, so what are we at, 38, trying to get to 44? There's nothing wrong with that, right? If you're trying to get that, but remember, you're going to run into that resistance there, so you got to make a call there. Are you going to be okay giving back 50% of it? And not that that's a foregone conclusion, but that would be the most likely scenario. Now, this is all conjecture. I have no idea where we go here. I can just start to forecast and say, well, likely we're going to run into some resistance there. I've got a prior swing here, so there's going to be some selling here, and I've got a big... Here's my point of control as I look here. So we've got a lot of market acceptance here. So if we're going to come up here, we're going to get challenged here. So note all of the, look where the point of control is. So we know we're going to have some challenge here, right? The market found good acceptance there. Now, can it get through that? If it can, then it's clear sailing. So let's put that, see if we can get that put together just to get some sense of scale. So if we get 1, 2, well, here's our zone for our third, right? So pretty good, just looking at sort of eyeballing how that might go. If we're going to come down for the 4, then you might do the same thing and say, let's see if I can get this pushed up. Okay, so I can take the length of the 1. And again, I'm purely hypothetical here. If we did something like that, well, 100, 1272, that gives us a reasonable target up here in terms of a potential roadmap. So right here, as we sit here, probably a little early for it. But if you got a push up here to this 50 and then a pullback, then I like it. So unless you're comfortable chasing here, so you certainly could be a buyer here with a stop under the 65. Nothing wrong with that, right? It's on the assumption that this is going to carry on. We're going to get more development. Right? The key is if we're going to get here, we need a little more distance off of this low to call it a good one wave. All right, now this could just be the one wave of the one wave if we think about where that could be going. So a little early for it in my view. But it's low risk. So if we do get a little pullback, again, if this is going to be the one of the larger degree, well, this could just be the one wave of this one wave. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea to be a buyer here. You've got some support sitting right here. So we can certainly look at our one wave high sitting there. So if we're going to push beyond it, come back, that's a logical place to be anticipating that you'd find some support. You can see here resistance, then it was support, kicked off of it, broke it. Now we're through it again, so if we can get some distance from it, then here's the next place you're likely to find some resistance at the 50 on the way back. So trying to get that roadmap put together, said, right? If you're very aggressive and you just want to be long because you think this thing is going to go, and again, nothing says we stop up here, then certainly you could be a buyer here, or maybe you take half of your size here. If you get this push, take some profit here, and then look for the reload on the first pullback. That's what I see there, guys. Okay, so that's 15 minutes. That'll probably give us enough. So we got, when's our earnings coming? Not till well, we got 2 weeks to earnings. So anticipated that this, so you might have some anticipation here that would drive it up here in the buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of a scenario here. So anticipation of good earnings could drive this up into our 50 if that's how the market's going to interpret it. Right? Then we get the reality. What do the earnings look like? And then how does the market respond? So keep that in mind, but that's not a bad looking chart, right? Some interesting development, some technical trading here. So far, these pivots are technical. We've got a good potential roadmap here. Definitely one to be watching. All right, guys, I think we're going to try and get a couple more in today. I got to see what the polling looks like from the members, but we'll be back to you shortly.